Good morning. This is Jen and Steven with Iowa Backyard Farmer, and today we are talking about tomato cages. Steven gets lots of questions on what do we use? Why do we use it? Why have we tried this or have we tried that? Um, we just wanted to give you a brief tutorial on the cages that we do use, why we use them, and then we'll put one together and show you how it works and talk to you a little bit about how much it costs.
Yep.
So in our long garden boxes back there, we had set up to do a trellis, like with baling twine.
Yeah, so on our beds that are 30 foot long, they're nice and straight. We do have everything set up with the trellis. We've got wires across the top. We got wires across the bottom. We use fairly heavy duty baling twine to string those up. That's pretty convenient. But it's a lot of work.
You have to do that every week. Tomatoes grow.
Yeah, you
got
to wind them all up. You got to prune them.
It's a process.
It's
but
certainly
it
productive.
Works really well. The problem that we've had with that recently is that our trees got bigger and we have a lot of shade in that spot. So we've moved some of our tomato production further out into the yard where it can get a little bit more sun. Problem is we lost our long straight row and we're not always growing indeterminate big huge tomatoes. So what do we do now?
So we've tried a few different things. We have a number of cages that we built out of cattle panels, and they're very, very sturdy, but they're not easy to bend, and so they're these big angular shapes. And if we want to adjust the spacing and that kind of stuff, it doesn't give us a whole lot of flexibility.
But they do not move. They do not move.
But they've been very good.
But when we went this year and we're like, we'd like to replicate that. I mean, those cattle panels, and you need bolt cutters, and even with bolt cutters, that's a workout.
Yeah.
That's a workout. So we didn't want to replicate that this time. What have we used with even more success?
And so what we're doing this year, and we've done this for a couple of years, but we're making more this year, is use the concrete reinforcing mesh wire. It's about 5 foot tall. And it's big, thick, and heavy, but it doesn't, I guess it's easier to work with.
It's a little thinner to cut.
So we are able to bend it and shape it into the shape that we want. It's easier. The holes are a little smaller than the cattle panels, so we can make it the sizes that we want it to make it. Probably the biggest downside is once we make these, storage is a kind of a pain. They do take a lot of space.
So our cattle panel ones fold up flat and we can just stack them somewhere. The concrete wire ones kind of are the shape they are and they stay where they are until we're done. But we'll show those to you and they have worked really well. We have put them on our grow bags and they'll fit right around a nice grow bag and then right up to the top, and they're not going to move. They're not going to move. And even in our buckets, we have made them for the 5-gallon buckets. We'll show you what that looks like. And our bigger, what are those, 10 gallon?
I think they're 14 gallon, around 14, 15, 20 gallon tubs, yeah.
And we figured that those fit in there really good. And since the tubs stay there and the wire stays there, they've worked really amazing. So we wanted to share it with you. So let's talk about the process before we make this. We did a lot of these on Saturday, like a whole row's worth. And what I learned from this is that it is not a shorts and flip-flops operation.
You end up with any damage on your body?
I will bear a scar from that operation. So today we are wearing jeans. Steven's got safety goggles.
Safety glasses, definitely.
Because the wire is all wrapped up and it has a little spring action and it's sharp and it's rusty. So are you current on your tetanus shot?
No, I'm good on my tetanus shot. But I'm glad you are too.
But they're fabulous and you'll see them. So let's make one.
Yep.
All right.
Here we go.
So I bought this 150-foot roll of concrete wire mesh from Menards. Cost about $120. And we can make 30 of these big cages out of this roll. What you can't see is I've got a brick holding it down at the bottom of the screen because the wire does like to roll itself back up. So I am making cages that are essentially 9 of these squares wide. So I count 9 and then go to the very far end of the next one, so almost 10 squares, and then cut the wires with these bolt cutters. It is you notice that the wire does like to spring up, so it is helpful to be able to either stand on it with good boots or have a partner stand on part of it as well so it doesn't spring up and whack you in the side or the butt or the arm, or even worse, your eye. Here I'm cutting the very bottom row off, basically leaving 10 spikes that we will use to stab into the ground to hold it up. Once we get that all cut, make sure you take that extra wire that you just cut off, get it out of the way, because it is very sharp and don't want to cause any injuries. So once you get that moved out of the way, then essentially you roll the ends together and start wrapping around the long spiky portions around the other portions of the cage. Do that across everything. You could do, either make those shorter, you can grind them to be not so spiky, but we just put them in an angle that they're not likely to cause any injury to anybody. Once you get all those wrapped around, then we basically just kind of squish the cage a little bit to try to get into a more round shape. It is kind of tear-shaped to begin with, but once you get it all round like you like, you're ready to go and put it on a plant.
Okay, now that we've got the cage made and fairly round, since it was kind of tear-shaped before I squished it down a little bit, basically we come and we just set it over our grow bag, and with, I think, 10 little legs, you can push down, you can step on it. It doesn't take a whole lot, and essentially when the plants are small like that, it is very easy to do. I always try to make sure that the little wires that are bent are on the side that nobody's going to be getting into, because do not want to have any injuries or scratches from that either. So while it's very convenient when the plants are small to be able to just go set them over the top, it doesn't take hardly any effort. Some of you may be like us and life gets a little out of control, and you end up with plants like this that you had staked up when you planted. But this thing is like 3.5, 4 feet tall and a couple feet wide. How in the world do we get a cage around these without damaging the plant? And we'll show you that in just a second.
So the process here is exactly the same, and we're making exactly the same size tomato cage. You might be wondering, why not just make a bigger cage and put it over top of this tomato? Well, I'll tell you, it won't fit. We had to fit 2 more cages into the space that we normally fit in this bed, and so this is our hack to show you how to fit a cage that is existing or needs to fit in a certain place that you can't drop on top. Okay, so what looked like overkill for that tiny little tomato in that great big cage really quickly becomes not quite enough in our experience really fast. And we planted, like you said, all of these and staked them, but we have high winds coming today, and watch us struggle. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
You want to tell them what you did?
Yeah, so basically just went and cut another one out, cut the legs off, or the feet off, so we can stake it into the ground pretty well. And we probably won't show up, but if the winds are coming, we can also stake these to the ground with like a T-post or something like that. But for today, we're just trying to get these set up. And basically, when you're trying to get around a great big plant that already exists, I only wrap the wire at the very, very top, which gives us kind of a cone shape, makes it a little easier to try to get around it.
Some flexibility. It now is a 2-person job.
Absolutely. I still can't do this one by myself. So, you're ready?
While Stephen was making this cage, I trimmed up the bottom suckers off of this tomato and any long branches. I tried to make this as easy as possible by holding up the bottom branches and making sure none of them get caught at an angle that will snap or damage them.
And as she's down holding the bottom stuff up, I'm trying to make sure that nothing on the top gets bent down, that I'm bringing this down over the center of the stake and not ramming into other plants or other cages and getting things stuck. Once we get things adjusted fairly well, then we can turn this just a little bit, not too much, because it is easy to get branches caught up and broken. But then we just slowly start to fold the wires together, bring it back into a more circle fashion. Make sure that we're not jamming it down onto the irrigation pipes or anything that we want to avoid. But once we get it all settled fairly well, then we just start adjusting the branches, the leaves, make sure everything is in the most natural position as possible.
It's not problem free. We did end up losing a couple small little spots of fruit and things. You know, it's better to cage it early. But in this case, working together after a little bit of adjusting, this is going to work out just fine. So what we've learned from this project, one, is better to plan ahead. If you have tomatoes and they say on the label they're going to be 7 foot tall, just plan ahead for a big cage and put it on before it gets big. If you haven't, there are options, and this works great. It'll take a couple days for this tomato to sort out which end is up again, but it'll keep growing and it'll be good.
Yeah, that'll work.
So talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.